Arabic friends, and I study Arabic as well.
Oh, is it? Yeah, he didn't say Janubi wa Shamali.
Nice.
So you come in and tell me, you know? I didn't expect that, I have to say. All right? He didn't say that. He said مشارقها ومغاربها وإن أمتي سيبلغ ملكها ما زوي لي منها. So he said that. And he also mentioned, like for example, right? There was a time where there was a battle called Khandaq. And this, or the Battle of Ahzab. And this particular battle, the Muslims were in a situation of weakness.
Yeah.
They were in a situation of weakness. And there's a hadith that states that there was a sakhra. What does that mean?
Rock?
Yeah. So now we're doing the Arabic lesson. So there was a rock, yeah, and the Prophet hit it one time, and he says, Futiha Faris, that Rome has been conquered, meaning that we're going to conquer Rome. And then he hit it again. The Persian Empire has been Faris, yeah? And then he hit it again. And then he said, Futiha Sham, yeah? So the Levant has been conquered. And then, is it Rome? Yeah, which was part of the Roman Empire at that time, right? And then he hit it again, and he said, Futiha al-Yemen, which is Yemen at that time, right? He was in a situation of weakness. Like these guys had a very small area of land that they were in control of. They were being sieged by everybody, you know. The Prophet was so hungry that he had to tie a rock to his belly to try and trick his body into thinking there was something there. And these guys were in the desperation, like the height of desperation. And this time, he said Islam is going to spread to these areas, which are the most. It's like, once again, going to Barnaby Rogerson's example. It's like the Eskimos conquering Russia and America. You know, it's like that. So this in itself is an astonishing fact that historians cannot deny, and that they cannot ignore.
But didn't it spread by invasion? Like how?
Yes, it did. Yes, it spread through.
Why is that so astonishing?
No, because if you think about the ability, the capability of the Muslims at the time, how many were the Muslims? How many were the Persians and the Romans? It's astonishing because the Roman Empire, if you look at from its inception in 55 BC, whether you had the Gallic Wars, yeah, up until the time of the Prophet, we're talking about what? We're talking about hundreds of years of world domination. The Roman Empire was a serious empire. Then you had the Persian Empire, which once again, millennia was dominating the world. So you have these two empires which are established for centuries and millennia, that these people now, who are not even they're thousands of people, like probably maximum 10,000 in population, they're saying we're going to conquer these places. That is astonishing.
Can I avoid for the invasion?
Yeah.
For the invasion, you are mentioning invasion. The invasion was to break the siege on the normal people. For example, Damascus or these cities, those people are not freedom to follow any religion. They have the invasion who talk about is just to break the army or the country or the government
he's saying
which rule the people.
Like the tribes.
What?
The tribes?
No, they're Roman.
Okay.
Roman.
Yeah, he's trying to say that people are not being compelled.
Army, then you give freedom of religion for them. The invasion concept is not exactly clear as it's in the history.
Right.
It was just to break the army, then give the people the freedom to religion. It's okay to not join Islam. It's not by. Some people said that Islam spread by sword. No, you have to break the acid. Bilad Faris, this Kisra, this Iran area, this area. You need to break the army. Then give the people the freedom of that. Because if we come back to different story after Islam even, there was a Safawi who ruled Iran area. That guy, the Iran area was Sunni people. And he killed around 1 million people to force them to join Shia. Because he want that for his rules. Because he want to rule the area. And one sheikh told him, you have to go with Al-Imam al-Faqih, la. Then you need to force the people to join a Shia. They were Sunnah, then go to a Shia.
That's a good point.
So the sword sometimes not to force you to Islam, no, to remove the force on you and give you the freedom of.
And that's what the Prophet said. He said, the Prophet ﷺ, he said to the people of Mecca, he said, "Da'ani bayni wa bayn sa'ir an-nas." He said, just leave me. This was the first thing he said. He said that, he said that, leave me between me and the people. So his intention was not to go and force them. Because the Quran says, La ikraha fi din, there's no compulsion in religion. And that's why La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in religion.
Oh, right.
La ikraha means there's no compulsion, you can't force somebody.
No enforcement.
Yeah. And that's why, in fact, when Islam did conquer these lands, and it was a conquest, when they conquered these lands, which would have otherwise conquered them, by the way, because the Roman Empire was no pacifist state, and neither was the Persian Empire. But when it did conquer those lands, as the brother mentioned, it gave freedom of religion to the people there. And someone will give some examples of where that wasn't the case in history, like the Muwahhidun or something. We say fine, or ISIS. We say, oh, whatever. These are examples which are against the Quran and Sunnah. But the Quran and Sunnah are very clear that, in fact, not only do Christians and Jews should they be allowed to choose their own religion, but they should have their own legal systems as well, which are efficacious. So in other words, if there's a ruling that they come up with, that ruling is actually upheld, which is actually not even afforded to us as Muslims in this country, funny enough. Like, for example, if I wanted to rule on Islamic law or something, yeah, I go to a so-called Sharia council. This is just a person giving an opinion at the end of the day. That's all it is. There's no power of enforcement. He can't call the police and, okay, a woman has called the khula or whatever, and then now the police are going to get involved. No, that's nothing like that, right? So there's no power, but in the Islamic state, there was actually power of enforcement. So when the Christians and Jews had ruled on their own terms, they could enforce their laws. And so this is a very interesting pluralistic element of the Islamic system. People they think it's some kind of totalizing force, but it's not. It's correct. It's not. When we say conquest, we're not talking about forcing people. And you know what's funny? Because you know
something for Mecca.
One more thing. This is not even something we're saying. I mean, there's an Orientalist called Thomas Arnold Walker, who wrote a book called The Preaching of Islam. And in it, he says this. He says when Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he conquered Jerusalem, which, by the way, is another prophecy. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "U'adud sittan bayna yaday as-sa'a, mawti thumma fathu bayt al-Maqdis." He said that count 6 things before the hour, my death and then the conquest of Jerusalem, which is exactly what happened, right?
Isn't that also written that something like that will happen again in the future?
No, this is Constantinople, right? So there's another one, Fath al-Constantiniyya, which is present-day Istanbul. Scholars of Islam have differed. Has this happened? Or
Al-Quds?
No.
Yeah, like
it will be twice, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right.
It will be under siege twice. The first one was Umar's time.
No, but
and this one.
no, but
the second
what
one
we're
will be
talking about
at the end of the war.
Yeah, no. But what we're talking about, the Quran indicates that. But in terms of that prophecy, it was fulfilled. The prophecy has already been fulfilled. When the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Constantinople will be conquered. Some scholars say actually what happened with Muhammad Fatah is, the Ottoman leader, is not actually the conquest, because there was fighting, and it says in the hadith there will not be fighting. So some scholars say that this will be done again. But I don't know if that's the case or not. We have to look into it. The issue of Jerusalem, as you've mentioned, the Quran says, فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَمْرُ الْآخِرَةِ لِيَسُوءُ وُجُوهَهُم وَلْيَدْخُلُوا الْمَسْجِدَ كَمَا دَخَلُوهُ أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ
Re-enter again.
Yeah, so this is chapter 17 of the Quran, I think verse 7, right? So that will come in again after the masjid here is the Masjid al-Aqsa.
Can I this point now for Mecca, what you said? The Prophet Muhammad was fired from Mecca and he ran away because they want to kill him. And then he fight with Mecca people. Okay, there was his enemy. And they are his neighbors, his family, his big family. When he back to Mecca and occupied Mecca, let's say like this, he entered with army. Then when he gathered them, his yesterday enemies,
he forgave them.
Yes.
That's a good point.
Yesterday enemies, he asked them, what you want me to do with you? Now they are my enemies and you kill many of my beloved ones. Now what you will do with me? What shall I do with you? They said, you are a brother and son of a brother. Then he said, you go, you are free to do whatever you want. He didn't even not kill them and take revenge, and none even ask them to go to Islam. You go wherever you want.
Even the killer
and
of
then
his...
some of them join Islam because of this freedom, and that's our enemy yesterday. Today he is forgive us, and even didn't take our homes, our money, whatever. And some of them join Islam, and after a few days from taking Mecca, Prophet Muhammad with his army go to At-Taif. And some of them join the army and go with him.
MashaAllah, you're good knowledge of the series, guys, isn't it? Yeah. Good. What's your name, Akhi?
Muhammad,
very good, MashaAllah.
I like visitor.
No, he's from
outside UK.
No, but you got good knowledge of the seerah, MashaAllah.
Yeah.
In fact, that's true. Yeah. And this speaks to the Prophet ﷺ's compassion, because one of the amazing things that, for me when I read it the first time, I couldn't believe it actually, there was a man called Wahshi. And he killed the Prophet ﷺ's uncle. His name is Hamza. He was his uncle, and he loved. Like if you look at the seerah or the Prophet's life, you see how much he loved his uncle, right? He was always there for him as a strong pillar of his life. And he got killed in he brutally killed by this guy called Wahshi. But when he went into Mecca, Wahshi, he forgave him as well, this man called Wahshi. And then the only thing he told him is, ممكن تغيب وجهك عني? Can you just not show me your face? Because I keep getting these kind of traumatic thoughts. And in fact, it was a mercy for him to say that, because he didn't want to have bad thoughts about Wahshi. But he forgave him. He said, I'll forgive you. The point is that when you look at the Prophet's life, not only did he exhibit the impeccable virtue, okay, really, when you look at it, forgiveness, bravery, all these kind of things, but you see that also he showed the right kinds of evidences. The things which, why do we really believe in him? Why are we standing here today? Why? Because when we look at his life, and we look at the evidences that he provided, the Quran, and we read it, I'm convinced that this cannot be from a human construction. It cannot be. It cannot be. Because there's too much look, the Quran makes too many claims. It makes claims about nature. It makes claims about history. You know, the Quran makes claims about history. And the Quran states, تِلْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ نُوحِيهَا إِلَيْكَ ما كنت تعلمها أنت ولا قومك من قبل هذا فاصبر إن العاقبة للمتقين. That these are from the stories of, or these are from the unseen, the paradigm of the unseen. We tell it to you. You didn't know it, and neither did your people. So have patience, because the end result will be for those who are pious. Now, when you look at the stories of the Quran, that by itself, where did the stories come from? Now you can say, well, it was taken from the Old Testament, it was taken from Talmudic sources or whatever, right? But why is it the case then that the Islamic narrative actually corrects those things on things which we've only discovered recently? I'll give you an example. One very simple and uncontroversial example. That in the Quran it says, when it's Joseph, who the great-grandchild of Abraham, when he discusses it when he talks with the supreme leader of Egypt, he calls him Malik. But in Genesis, Joseph calls him Pharaoh. But after the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, only recently, 300-400 years ago, we have been able to realize that actually there was the Hiscox dynasty at that time, and it's a particular dynasty in the time of Joseph. It was impossible that would have been in the New Kingdom. Therefore, there was kings and not pharaohs. So the Quran states something, the Bible states something else. The Quran is correcting the Bible. In fact, there's some things in the Quran that are mentioned that are so easy, a prima facie reading, that the Bible has no mention of. Pharaoh says, "Anna rabbukumul a'la." Pharaoh of Moses. He says, "Anna rabbukumul a'la." I am your Lord. The Bible never states that that Pharaoh said that. But we know now, you don't need to be an Egyptologist to know that this is what they were saying. And in fact, not only that, it's indicated in the Quranic narrative that you have other gods that were worshipped aside Pharaoh. وقال موسى وقالوا أتذر موسى وقومه ليفسدوا في الأرض ويذرك وآلهتك, that you leave you and your gods, meaning you have other gods that you worship. We know they believed in Ra and Isis and Horus and all these other gods. That's not mentioned in the Old Testament. A very straightforward, basic thing. You don't need to be, once again, I don't need to get you sources. We know that is the case. So these are just examples of where things are mentioned in history, تِلْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الْغَيْبِ, that these are things that are historical things. مَا كُنْتَ تَعْلَمُهَا أَنْتَ وَلَا قَوْمُكَ. You didn't know it and your people didn't know. How did you know? How did it come? Where did it come from? Where did this illiterate man in the desert, get information about previous nations where the hieroglyphic was a dead language and that we needed the Rosetta Stone to uncode it? You see the point?
Yeah, true. But don't you think it has something to do with the fact that they were written 600 years apart? Don't you think the time could explain why more things were known in the Quran than the Bible?
No, because as I say, the hieroglyphic language, right, which is where, for example, talk about Egyptology, right? Yeah. That was inaccessible to those people. Who's inaccessible?
Which people?
The Arabs.
Okay.
You'd have to go to Egypt. You'd have to now excavate things. By the way, there are things that need to be excavated. Like, for example, I'll give you one example, right? Now,
I have good example.
I'll tell you, I know what you're thinking.
Okay, yeah.
I know what you're thinking, brother.
Tell me.
Where Ramses II is usually, he is seen as the pharaoh of the Bible, right? And for good reason. You know why? Because Merempeta, who was his successor, there's something in Egyptology called a stela. Now, a stela is a rock. In that rock, they write down history. It's extra biblical information. In the 11th line of the Murampata stele, it's mentioned the children of Israel. So who came and we expelled the children of Israel? This is not in the Quran, not in the Bible. This is a rock, which is now consensus among Egyptologists that this is a true rock. Before Murampata was Ramses II, who, I don't know, he reigned for 91 years. Now, so that's why it's seen as he is the pharaoh, and also because he was in a new kingdom and all that kind of stuff. Now, the Quran states, فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. We will now preserve your body so that you can be, for those who come after you, a sign, like you. You wanted evidence, you said, okay, fine, this is a sign. Now, فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ, with your body, we will preserve your body, لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً. When did they discover the body of Ramses II? So recently, I think in the last, 100 years, yeah? In fact, it was such a thing. I'm from Egypt, actually. Originally, I'm from Egyptian, yeah? And I don't know if you know this, but at that time it was a Sadat. I think it must have been in the 70s, right? And he because he was a nationalist or whatever, he gave this Ramses II, he sent him to France, museum in France, and he gave him a ceremonial leaving. Like the cars were there and all this kind of, because he wanted to give respect to this Ramses II, even though he's the pharaoh of the Quran, right? The antagonist, the major antagonist of the Quran. Give him a ceremonial leave. Anyway, the point is that this is something that is okay. It's not a matter of could have been known within the 600 years, because it's something that happened after the 600 years.
Yeah, true.
You see the point?
Okay. Now my story is different. In another one.
Oh, you got another one.
It's the cave story.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
The spider. No.
Huh? It's
No,
the cave.
carry
The
on.
cave. Yes, it's the cave people. By the way, this story was just known by the religious Jewish in the Prophet time, and it's old ancient story, not in the time of Prophet or 100 200 years. It's very old, and only the Jewish high-level religious know these stories. So some of the people, which is not non-Muslim, told the Jewish, as you know the history and you have your book and you know a lot of stories, give us one specific and have evidence story. We can ask Prophet Muhammad if he know it or not. But we want story. Nobody in the world know it. They told them, the Jewish, let's ask them about the cave people. Ask them two questions. How much the number of them, and how many years they are asleep. You know the cave story? They sleep for 300 something years. This is one of the evidences from Allah, but this long time ago. So they go to Prophet Muhammad and they ask him, there is cave story, there is a good people there, sleep for a few years. How much these years? How much their numbers? Now, Prophet Muhammad don't know. Told them, okay, I will let you know. I will let you know tomorrow. And this, by the way, was something Allah learned Prophet Muhammad. That's, you cannot guarantee tomorrow I'll give you this information. So Allah didn't send him the reply after one day, after many days. Now, back to the Jewish, they told them the answers are 309 years. The second answer that the Jewish themselves, they don't know the number of the cave people. They have 3 stories on them. يقولون 43 كلب. 3 and have the fourth one is the dog. ويقولون 5 سادسهم كلبهم. And the second story that they are 5 and their 6 is the dog. And the main one, or the most probably one, is 7 and the 8 is their dog. So even the Jewish, 7 people and the dog is the 8. Because the story was about the people with dog. So they have 3 stories. The most probably one is 7 and the 8 is dog. So they back to Prophet Muhammad, and then after some time, Jibreel give him the information. So the information, now if Prophet Muhammad said 4 and the dog 5, it's false. If he said second one, it's false. If he mentioned third one, it's probably the right one, but if he know how they knows, he must mention the 3 one. And then the answer come in Quran. It's still now we can read it every one Friday. It was mentioned, يقولون, they said, يعني the stories as I said, 3 رابعهم كلبهم أو 5 سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب, like like stop point to show that the third one is the most probably one. Then they mention لبثوا في كهفهم 300 سنين وازدادوا 9, which means 309. Then when those people take the answer to Jewish, they told him, this is a prophet. This answer, nobody know it at all. And another miracle happened that...
بس let her react to it.
Just this is 309, just this one. This
okay, go ahead.
Another miracle.
Yeah.
That's ويقولون لبثوا فيها 300 سنين وازدادوا 9. They mention in their books 300 sun years. But the Quran reply 309. If you take it 300, it's the sun years. If you take it 309, it's the moon years. Sorry, bro. Okay.
Halas. Yeah. So you were talking about some evidences. Yeah. So we've provided you with some of them.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're sufficient?
No.
Not yet?
No, they're like good evidence, but
okay.
You
need more time?
Yeah, I need more time, or I need to see things, like not just hear things.
Like what?
I mean? Well, no, I don't mean to see a miracle, but like I need to like see how like people can live a great life, a great Islamic life. Like I'm sure it exists, but like
well, the thing is, let me tell you something, right? I think that standard is not a great standard. Let me tell you why. Even if people don't live a great Islamic life, what it should be the pursuit of truth. Now, the truth of the matter is, when you actually do live with truth and you live your purpose, that is more likely, and I think now cognitive psychology has kind of shown this, right? When you live your purpose and you have real meaning, that is more likely to keep away depression from your life, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. That's why the Prophet ﷺ stated, can you come here because there's cameras or something? No. Okay, sorry. The Prophet stated, right? He stated that عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ, and that wondrous is the affair of the believer. إِنَّ أَمْرَهُ كُلَّهُ لَهُ خَيْرٌ, that all of his affair is good. وَلَيْسَ ذَاكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ, and this is not the case for anyone except for the believer. إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرَّاء شَكَرٍ, if good things happen to him, he's thankful. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرَ وَشَكَرٍ, if bad things happen to him, he's thankful and he's patient. Islam doesn't give you, I can't, sell a lie to you or whatever. Islam doesn't say that when you become Muslim, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
In fact, the Quran says the opposite. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. It says that we will actually test you. When they first became Muslim, it said we will test you with something of hunger, fear and hunger, and depreciation of assets, and so on. Yeah, and so give glad tidings to those who are patient. الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّ لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. If bad things happen to them, they say we belong to God and we will return to Him. So it's what it is that when you embrace Islam, you have a mentality now. You have a new psychological mentality, which is that there's a greater purpose for everything. Pain becomes meaningful. Right now, as it stands, if you don't have a greater purpose for something, you can easily plunge into an existential type of nihilism. Everything meaningless, pain is irrelevant, whatever. I don't even know how to make sense of it. From the Islamic paradigm, it's not that pain will dissipate, but it's the fact that pain will become meaningful. Pain becomes meaningful, and that makes you more patient. And so in many ways, that's what we can provide, or what Allah provides, what Islam provides. It's not
how is that different from other religions? Like other religions makes your pain meaningful as well.
Right, the major difference...
I'm being manhandled. No one's got a right to touch me.
Yeah, don't touch him. Don't touch him, please, yeah? Bro, please stop touching him. Yeah. It's different from other religions in so much as Islam will give you the ability not to have cognitive dissonance. In psychology, the idea of cognitive dissonance is when you have one set of beliefs and your rationalizations are different. If you're a Christian, your rationality will eventually catch up to your beliefs, because you're going to say the Father is Almighty, the Son is Almighty, and the Holy Spirit is Almighty, but there are not three Almighties but one, which is exactly what their creed say. But then you're going to say to yourself, I don't agree with this. In your mind, you will struggle with this as a matter of fact. Not only that, but you will not be able to reconcile it. Now, Islam, so in order for this to be really meaningful, you need to have a metaphysical worldview which is self-consistent. Is self-consistent, and which actually doesn't create more problems in the case of, for example, cognitive dissonance. That's what we say. Islam, because it's self-consistent, and the premise of it is extremely basic, which is to submit your will and to worship one God. That's what we're saying. The higher power, the creator of the universe, the all-knowing one, the all-wise one. We just follow the wisdom of God. And if we do so perfectly, then pain becomes meaningful. Then the afterlife. Then on the sick bed, when we're about to die and we're about, we have something to look forward to. That becomes a meaningful expression. If something happens, someone gets cancer, which all these things you can't control. All of this stuff is tests. It's a test, because Allah says in the Quran, we have created life and death as a test. لِنَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So we could teach you or could test you who of you are the best in deeds. وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّهُمْ وَبَلَوْنَاهُمْ بِالْحَسَنَاتِ وَالسَّيِّئَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجَعُونَ. We have tested them with good things and bad things so they can come back to us. So with tests, there's always a reason. Now, when you don't have a reason, it's not just that you'll get depression, which is 100% you will get it. You'll be depressed, you'll be anxious, you won't know what's happening, but it's that depression will be meaningless. So what we're saying is that this is the Islamic good life. Not that, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, of course, I don't mean that. I mean a life that I can see people's ambitions and meanings and of course every life's not going to be
of course
straight like that. I don't mean like
but
that.
Can you see where I'm coming from with this? Yeah. So having said that, is there any other things that you want?
Not right now. I haven't got. I have got more questions, but I can't really think about them now.
Yeah.
But I'll come back and ask them.
All right. So, are you comfortable? What is stopping you from becoming Muslim right now?
I don't think I've got sufficient information, to be honest.
All right. Let's do it this then. How about this? Yeah. So, go home today, start reading the Quran, and start reading a brief explanation of the Prophet's life. And you can even read like Karen Armstrong's book. She's got a good kind of book on the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've seen her. Her name is Karen Armstrong. She has something about the Prophet's, or if not, the sealed nectar, which I think is my recommendation to you. Yeah. Just read something about the Prophet's life, read the Quran, and ask yourself one question: is this the truth? And if it is, then not embracing it also has its consequences, eschatological consequences in the afterlife, because you've been presented with it. We believe that those who disbelieve after they've been, has its consequences.
Yeah, true. But how does someone know that they have got enough? How do they know that they've been presented with enough information?
Yeah, but you have been. Let me tell you why.
Why?
Because we believe that every human being has been born with a fitra, or the innate disposition to believe in God, right? And so if I tell you, look, the purpose of life is to worship God, and this is the meta-narrative of all the prophets, right? Then really instinctively, you should have an inclination to that. It's not really even, it's ultra rational. It should be, okay, I believe in the Creator and I have a connection to that Creator. So long as what I'm saying does not contradict your instinct, it should be something which is second nature, something you accept. But so in a sense, that's why the Quran says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We're not going to punish anyone except when we send them a messenger. But you do have a responsibility now, I have to be honest with you, because you have been sent, you have been given enough, I believe, of the message to be able to make an informed
decision. What if I don't believe anything you've just told me? I'm not saying I don't.
Yeah. Well, in that case, it depends now. If you go home and say, forget this, we believe, and I have to be completely honest with you, right? There's a threat of eternal damnation, fire. That's the truth. And if you agree with it, we believe there's eternal salvation in heaven. We are like Christians, believe heaven and hell, right? And I'm not saying that, this is what we believe.
Yeah.
So look, Sophie, look into it in your own time, yeah? The Quran and the Seerah, which is the biography, it's called the Seerah, the biography of the Prophet, yeah? And make your own decision in your own time. And we're here, if I'm not here, then someone else will be here, And if you need anything, you can message me or you can email me as well, yeah?
All right.
Have you got any other questions?
No.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, yeah?
Yeah, you too.
If you need anything else, let us know.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much, yeah? See you later. Guys, take my mics away. All right, let's go and pray.
Yes, one more. Yeah. Need you back at LS, bro, inshallah.
Inshallah. We'll create some content.
Oh. Huh?